I'm starting the meeting.
Where did it go?
Oh, here's Judge Lang. Let me,
Hi, Walker.
Judge Lang, you appear as Kimberly V. Hill.
Yeah, that's my office assistant
Got it.
who handles all things WFL correctly.
So where did I go?
You're,
You can still see you, Jeff.
yeah, it's
Okay,
a
good.
frightening sight in this morning.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Judge Lang. On the tropical beach of God knows where. I wish I were there.
We have Governor
Oh, he's
Carruthers, Commissioner
Albuquerque.
Bluestone.
Oh, hi, Jeremy.
Francis, good morning.
How are you doing? Your wife safe so far?
She is. Thanks for asking.
Oh,
Before we start, can I make a motion?
no.
Well, I'm sure you're going to second it, Judge,
Second.
but I move that while we are in COVID land and meeting by Zoom, that staff need not wear jackets and ties at these meetings.
Oh,
Would you be open to a friendly amendment that they don't need to wear them ever?
what if we enjoy it though? You know,
That would be troublesome,
okay.
worrisome.
well, they look professional.
That's right. Don't let it make you nervous, Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Let's see, is Stuart here?
He is.
Yes, sir. I have to expand my view of the, there we are.
Judge,
Hey,
we do have a
Governor.
quorum. Walker, do you mind going through the role of folks to kind of do our normal Zoom precautions?
Yes, of course. And I believe Commissioner Solomon has just joined us here.
Okay.
And I think Commissioner Bluestone has been let in as well. Okay, let me go through. So we've unmuted and have on video all the commission staff and commissioners. And I guess the practice for these meetings is going to be to unmute and enable a video for participants during public comment portions of the meeting. But otherwise, it's just going to be the commissioners and staff who are on video and audio. This is all a precautionary step to prevent Zoom bombing. But our practice has been to allow introductions of participants at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm going to go through the list here and ask those folks who are in attendance. Oh, Governor Carruthers is asking to be unmuted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Governor. I've asked you to unmute yourself, Governor. So you have to press a button on your screen to be unmuted.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm gonna go through the participants here and ask you all to briefly identify yourselves, and if you have any organizational affiliation you'd like to comment on, please do. So I'll start with Bridget Thomas. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself here.
Hi, I'm Bridget. I'm a member of the public. No affiliation with an organization.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
I'm going to next go to, I think this is Mr. Tony Ortiz on iPad. I'll ask you to unmute yourself. Start video here. Okay, I guess this he may have stepped away from his iPad here, but I think that's Mr. Ortiz. Oh, here he is. I'm asking you to unmute yourself. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Tony Ortiz with New Mexico Ethics Watch.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz.
Morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Mute you, Mr. Ortiz, and stop your video. Next is Mr. Ken Resnick. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and if you like, you can start your video as well. It's up to you. Mr. Resnick, you should be now unmuted.
Ken Resnick, member of the public, not affiliated with any organization.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick. Finally, we have, well, second to last, we have Morgan Lee. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Hi, this is Morgan Lee with the Associated Press in Santa Fe.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for joining us.
Available.
And then finally, we have Phaedra Haywood.
Hi. Oh, hi. Phaedra Haywood from the Santa Fe New Mexican.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Haywood. All right, I think that's the roll call, Jeremy. I
Okay,
think we're ready to get started.
thank you, Walker. Chair Lang, we're ready to proceed. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. We'll briefly, for the agenda, take a call of the role of the commission. Commissioner Baker.
Present.
Commissioner Bluestone.
Here.
Commissioner Carruthers.
Here.
Commissioner Solomon.
President.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams.
Present and accounted for.
As is your chair, the roll is called. All commissioners are present. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we need to do these roll call on this particular platform. So again, I'll go through. Commissioner Baker.
I approve.
Mr. Bluestone.
Yes. Approve.
Brothers.
Yes.
Mr. Solomon.
Approve.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Approve.
Commissioner Williams.
Approve.
Thank you. Chair approves as well. The agenda is approved. Next, I will seek a motion for approval of the minutes of the August 7th, 2020 commission meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second. There is a second. Okay, having been moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Baker?
Approve.
Mr. Bluestone?
Yes. Approve.
Commissioner Carruthers?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
I'm going to abstain, Mr. Chairman, since I wasn't present for that meeting.
All right, fair enough. And Commissioner Villanueva?
Approve.
Commissioner Williams?
Approve.
Chair votes approve as well. All right, I will now turn it over to Jeremy and Wendy for item number 4. Take it away, folks.
Thank you, Chair. So the main purpose of today's meeting is to approve the FY22 budget request. And before I go through the strategic plan documents and the FY22 budget request, I just want to give you a little bit of background and context for these documents and for the timeline. So under the State Ethics Commission Act, the executive director prepares an annual budget and submits it to the commission for approval. Then under the Accountability in Government Act, the commission's budget request is due in to the LFC and to DFA on September the 1st. All state agencies FY22 or annual budget requests are due in on September 1st of the previous year preceding the session. So that's why the commission is meeting today at the end of August to review and hopefully approve the FY22 budget request. The budget request for the upcoming fiscal year under the Accountability in Government Act is accompanied by a strategic plan. And that kind of follows from statutory requirements in the Accountability in Government Act that require detail for agency budget requests and it's also required by the instructions that DFA submits to the state agencies each year for the preparation of their budgets, their budget requests. Yesterday, the LFC informed us that our LFC subcommittee hearing on our FY22 budget is on October the 1st at 2:30 p.m. in room 322 of the Capitol. The LFC is signaling that as of right now, those subcommittee hearings will be in person. And Wendy and I spoke yesterday, and we will both plan to attend the LFC subcommittee hearing in person on October the 1st in the afternoon. The documents that you have before you, and for members of the public that are following along, which are available on the transparency page of the State Ethics Commission's website, include a strategic plan for FY21 and for FY22 and the FY22 budget request. And the reason why we prepared an FY21 strategic plan is because last year, although the Commission did submit an FY21 budget request to the Commission wasn't at a point where it was ready to prepare a strategic plan for FY21 to enable the LFC and the DFA to kind of evaluate and get a sense for what the Commission is doing in FY21. So we thought it would benefit the LFC and the DFA for them to see what the Commission is up to in this fiscal year in FY21. So that's why this document includes strategic planning for both FY21, which we're currently in, and the next fiscal year, FY22. This document, the strategic plan document, was one that the whole team put together. All members of the staff were involved in the preparation of this document. We really benefited from Wendy's experience in working on strategic plans at DFA before. Commissioner Villanueva provided suggestions yesterday afternoon, and she has a lot of experience in strategic planning. And so this document here kind of reflects, it's kind of a mini minds approach to the Commission's work. And in many ways, it was relatively easy to put together because the Commission is such a deeply legal entity and has so many duties under statute, under the State Ethics Commission Act, under the Governmental Conduct Act, under the Campaign Reporting Act, et cetera, that what the Commission has to do is really just reads right off of its statutory duties. And so you'll see in the strategic planning document, we made an attempt to kind of organize those duties in ways that were thematic and make sense. But ultimately, I don't think we found the strategic planning to be all that difficult because we don't have a ton of discretion. What we have rather is a very large set of duties that we have to optimize, really what amounts to an insufficient amount of resources to try to discharge as many of these duties as best as we can. And so that's the kind of overview of the strategic plan documents and why the background context for why the Commission is approving this request today, or hopefully approving the request today. So with that being said, what I'd like to do, Chair, is just present the FY21 strategic plan and then stand for questions on what's going on in this fiscal year, and then present the FY22 plan, stand for questions then, and then move on to the FY22 budget request and have an opportunity to entertain questions regarding the details of the budget request. And I should also say, before I jump into it, that what you have with respect to the FY22 budget request and what's in the open meetings materials is precisely what we would submit to the State Budget Division and the LFC. The kind of the formulaic documents that you see are what agency budget requests look like.
Right. That's a good idea. Why don't you go ahead in that way?
Okay, so with that, Chair, I'll just walk through this document, kind of highlighting certain parts that I think that are helpful for reviewing it. So first is just to go through, I think on page 5 of the strategic plan, this is where I'd like to begin with just a quick review of the commission's core responsibilities, what the commission at its core does. The first is to adjudicate administrative complaints alleging violations of the ethics laws. The second is the investigation and prosecution of civil enforcement actions for violations of ethics laws. And that also entails filing whatever amicus briefs that the commission needs to file to try to protect and substantiate those statutes and their correct interpretation. And the last core responsibility is to educate public officers, public employees, and the public about the government ethics laws. And that includes several responsibilities: the issuance of advisory opinions upon request, the promulgation of a model code of ethics for state agencies, attempts at legislative reform of the ethics laws, reports to the legislature about the operation of the ethics laws and the commission's work. Those are the kind of core responsibilities that the commission has before it. Flipping over to page 6, the organizational structure of the agency. So this is it. There's the 7 ethics commissioners, and this org chart has 6 positions. But as we'll discuss later, because of the FY22 budget request, really for the next 2 years, the commission will sit at 5 full-time employees. And those are the ED, the general counsel, both of which are statutory positions, the finance and administration director, which is a classified state personnel position, the communications director, which is an exempt position, and the attorney 3 classified position that we're currently hiring for. There won't be budget to hire for another position in FY22, and while we have funds in FY21 for another position, currently the state is under a hiring freeze that both SPO, the governor's office, and DFA have implemented. So it's very unlikely that we'll be able to use our FY21 personnel funds to bring on someone even in a temporary basis, given the hiring freeze. But I'll talk more about that. So that's the org chart, and what the kind of personnel that the commission has for the next 2 years through FY22 to get its work done. So moving on to the objectives and strategic actions for FY21. I've broken these down into kind of 4 groups. The first deals with what we're doing to adjudicate the administrative complaints that are filed with the commission. The first is that we have built and is now live on our website a web-based case filing and docketing system where complainants can file online complaints and track those complaints on an online docket. Our plan was to have that finished by August the 30th, and it is finished. It is up on the website and functioning. And occasionally we have to debug it, and there will be some bugs that arise that we don't anticipate at the moment. But so far, I'm really pleased with how it looks and how it works. It's very clean. The contractor did a very good job, and they're very responsive when we do identify bugs. So that's the first big action on the adjudication of administrative complaints. In relation to that, we've developed and published several step-by-step video tutorials about how this docket application works. I think Sunny did a great job on those tutorials, and they're there on the website for your viewing pleasure. Next is to ensure that we have sufficient hearing officers if and when administrative cases require a hearing. We have an interagency MOU with the Administrative Hearings Office. We pay them for hearing officer work, and we also have a contract which I expect to be approved by the Contracts Review Bureau either today or next week with retired Supreme Court Justice Ed Chavez to also serve as a hearing officer. So those will be our hearing officers for FY21, Justice Chavez, and those hearing officers that the AHO assigns. Next, later in FY21, it might make sense for the commission to clean up the rules of procedure via rulemaking proceeding. And as we go through the rules in administrative cases that appear before the commission, in the course of those cases, we notice things about how the rules might work more efficiently. Some of those we can bridge over through executive director standing orders, but eventually and likely later in this fiscal year, a rulemaking to clean up some of the administrative rules might make sense. And then last, we have to do the job of adjudicating every complaint that's filed with the commission. That's a signed and notarized complaint, an administrative complaint. And the statute requires us to get that done within 90 days or to go before the commission and ask for more time, at which point the commission could dismiss the complaint. And so far, the commission's received 30 administrative complaints, a few of which are still pending, most of which have been adjudicated. So next, moving on to enforcement. This is an aspect where so far in this fiscal year, the commission has really only participated as an amicus in the State v. Gutierrez case. I suppose we did that last fiscal year when it was pending before the Court of Appeals. That case is now before the Supreme Court on certiorari review, and it remains to be seen if the Supreme Court will grant cert. If they do, I anticipate the commission will file an amicus curiae brief before the Supreme Court. Part of the strategic actions involved in enforcing violations of the ethics laws outside of the commission's adjudicatory process involves building trust with community partners where they feel comfortable letting the commission staff know about potential violations, watching ourselves for potential violations, sending letter requests to folks that might be outside of the ethics laws, asking for an explanation. And we do have some available contract budgets should we need it in this fiscal year to contract with investigators to follow up on any whistleblower allegations or informal complaints or leads that we receive. And so, although I can't speak to the details of any of these kind of informal complaints or investigations in an open meeting, it is an area in which we do send letter requests when we're tipped off that a person or entity might be in violation of one of the laws under the commission's jurisdiction. So next, the guidance and education responsibilities of the commission, which are very important. First and foremost is issuing formal advisory opinions upon request. The commission has received the commission has issued 6 advisory opinions so far. It has received 8 requests for advisory opinions. So two requests are currently pending. Those are opinions that staff are now working on. Related to advisory opinions, there's currently a rulemaking before the commission at the moment to develop a rule to create an informal advisory opinion process that would allow commission staff to answer in a more expeditious manner requests for informal advisory opinions that later could be ratified by the full commission if the commission were confident in the advice. Also, in this fiscal year related to this goal, the commission is promulgating and issuing a proposed code of ethics for state agencies. We're developing trainings and continual legal education courses, both for the State Ethics Commission Act, which Walker and I offer to members of the state bar, which we'll be offering to attorneys in the Attorney General's office next month. We're also developing trainings for compliance with the Governmental Conduct Act, and we're working with the commission's contractor, Paul Biederman, on a series of of work that relates to updating the Governmental Conduct Act compliance guide, to preparing train the trainer materials, to offer and to proctor trainings that the State Ethics Commission staff and contractors will offer in the future to state agencies and to local governments. This particular duty is a very large one. The Governmental Conduct Act requires the State Ethics Commission to provide trainings on the Governmental Conduct Act's requirements to everyone in the state that's subject to the Governmental Conduct Act. And that's all employees of state agencies and local governments and other governmental entities besides. It's a very tall order for a commission and a staff of this size. And so to make a good faith effort at discharging this duty, we're going to need to be smart about how we build that training and how we deploy it. And I think we can use Zoom, we can use other technologies to provide quality video recordings of trainings that we can have available on our website once they're developed in an effort to meet this responsibility under the Governmental Conduct Act. Ideally, the commission would have a larger staff that would be providing in-person trainings to local governments around the state and working with them on the responsibilities that the Governmental Conduct Act requires. And eventually, I think the commission will get there. But now, kind of in the present situation of the pandemic and the resource constraints that we're under, we'll do what we can to meet this responsibility. And it kind of begins with building around Mr. Biederman's expertise in providing ethics, education, and trainings for decades in his career, and kind of leveraging that expertise for the commission. And so Paul Biederman is on contract during FY21 to help the commission with this responsibility. And last, there's work that the commission will do along these lines in this fiscal year, running up to the election, in conjunction with the Secretary of State, to educate the public on what's required under the Campaign Reporting Act, principally. That, as you know, that statute was amended in significant ways during the 2019 session, and I think we're still attempting to educate candidates and entities that are involved in ballot question campaigns, political campaigns, on what their duties are under the Campaign Reporting Act. And last, with respect to FY21, there is the overarching responsibility to build the agency's capacity and its visibility. And so the kind of strategic actions that the commission has for this goal involve hiring a deputy general counsel, a classified attorney position, to provide the commission with more attorney capacity. Another strategic goal that I have, which isn't on this document, and which I will amend the document before submission, is the Director of Finance and Administration, Wendy's position, is currently a staff manager pay band 75 position. That's what SPO approved, and I think it's insufficient. We were extremely fortunate to hire Wendy into this position, given her skills and knowledge base about budget requests, the budget process, accounts payable, how share works, how share financial works, how the human resource transactions works. Wendy takes care of what an entire administrative services division of a large agency takes care of across many employees. For the State Ethics Commission, because we only have budget for one person to handle kind of what an administrative services division handles, at some point in the future, Wendy will move on in her career, and the commission will need to recruit a talented, knowledgeable employee to handle those functions. And I think this position needs to be reclassified to at least a pay band 80 position. And indeed, Wendy deserves that, given the responsibility she has with the State Ethics Commission. And so it's a strategic action for FY21 to press this request upon SPO and to try to increase the classification of this position, both for kind of current considerations of fairness, but really because it will be very important for the stability of this commission going forward that this position is able to that the commission is able to recruit well for this position. It's a totally essential position. Next, the chair, there is a strategic action on this document to hire a special projects coordinator position to support the commission's investigations and the kind of increasing paralegal duties that are arising as the commission scales up and the number of administrative complaints it's handling. Unfortunately, we will unlikely be able to hire for that position until FY23 at the earliest. The FY22 budget request is 95% of the commission's appropriation after the summer special session. The way in which we're able to make a 5% budget cut is to make that cut in the 200s in the funds for personnel. And so there's not funding for FY22 for this position. And while there remains funding in FY21 for this position, there is currently a hiring freeze that the governor's office, that DFA, and that SPO have implemented and are enforcing. And while we've been successful in getting SPO and DFA to approve both Wendy's position, the Director of Finance and Administration, and the Attorney 3 position, to create those positions and to allow us to hire for those positions despite the hiring freeze, I think that because the Special Projects Coordinator 2 position is an exempt position and it's solely the province of the 4th floor and SPO really doesn't have anything to do with it, I think it would be harder to hire for this position on a temporary basis for FY21. And so it's unlikely that we'll be able to fill this, which was Matt Baca's position for the remainder of this fiscal year. However, we do plan to conduct again our summer internships for UNM law students, paid summer internships. I had the pleasure of speaking to the UNM Law Review class on Monday night, a class which, by the way, Walker is the co-professor of. And just as we hired UNM Law Review students last summer to come and work for the commission, we intend to do the same thing this summer. And I think that's important to develop a pipeline of young New Mexico lawyers that are knowledgeable about what the commission does and are concerned about its future going forward. And very lastly, the part of the strategic goals for the commission and its capacity this fiscal year is to do what the Campaign Reporting Act, the Voter Action Act, and the Lobbyist Regulation Act require, which is to prepare a report and proposed amendments to those statutes for the legislature in the upcoming session about how to improve those statutes in terms of their administration and enforcement. Those 3 statutes right now have a lot of duplicative process that needs to be streamlined, and duties and powers are allocated to the Ethics Commission, to the Secretary of State, to the Attorney General. There are arbitration provisions. There are State Ethics Commission hearing provisions. The Secretary of State's office has to ensure voluntary compliance before a remedy could be issued under any of those statutes. And because statutory responsibilities are allocated across agencies, it's forced us to write a joint powers agreement with the Secretary of State's office that reads like a ping pong machine, where cases just ping back and forth between the agencies so that all of the statutory duties can be met. One very important goal is to get past the JPAs and to improve upon these statutes. When the State Ethics Commission Act was was being debated on the Senate floor, and subject to nearly 2 hours of floor amendments, one late night at the end of the 2019 session. Senator Cervantes remarked about how there's weird aspects with duplicative process and arbitration provisions in some of these statutes. And hopefully in the upcoming session, it's a strategic plan of the agency to improve upon those statutes. And with that, Chair, that's an overview of what the Commission has going on in FY21.
Commissioners, do you have any questions that you would like to ask of Jeremy? We'll start, Commissioner Baker.
I have one on page 4 of the strategic plan. It says that the executive director and general counsel, those contracts are term limited. What is the term?
The executive director is subject to a 6-year term and may be rehired for another 6 years. So the executive director, any person could only ever serve as executive director for at most 12 years. The general counsel works the same way, but subject to 5-year terms. So a person can only serve as general counsel for at most 10 years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carruthers.
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, on that very subject, I'm kind of wondering why it is that we have those limitations. It's not unusual for people who join these kinds of commissions and serve these kinds of commissions to have much longer tenure in those jobs. And I suppose somebody wanted it that way, but it seems to me like it's not a credible way to run government when you term limit people who are professionals in an organization. That's point number one. Point number two is, as we come into the campaign season, what can we expect in the way of complaints to the Ethics Commission with regard to the campaigns that are going on? And I say that because I anticipate that this is not going to be the nicest and sweetest campaign that we're going to go through in this country. It seems to me that campaigning is becoming nastier and nastier. Is there any ethical considerations in any of the laws that would help mitigate what I consider to be negative campaigning?
Chair and Governor Carruthers, directly responding to your question, I don't know that there's much the State Ethics Commission can do to draw a limit on what the First Amendment would allow folks to say via campaign advertisements.
What kind of complaints would we anticipate?
Right. So the complaint that we would anticipate would fall along the lines of expenditures for campaigns not properly being disclosed in reports to the Secretary of State's office, PACs not having registered as political committees with the Secretary of State's office and making themselves subject to those reports. I think disclosure-related complaints are likely to be what we're likely to see. Now, these kinds of complaints are subject to our joint powers agreement with the Secretary of State. We would first send those complaints over to the Secretary of State's office, and they would have the first crack to determine if there were a violation, and if so, to try to achieve voluntary compliance, which is their statutory responsibility. It's also worth mentioning that in this regard, the legislature imposed in the State Ethics Commission Act the 60-day blackout period, where I believe complaints cannot be filed against candidate respondents unless the complaints arise under the Campaign Reporting Act or the Voter Action Act. And so there's a way in which the State Ethics Commission can't even really police some of the misconduct that you might be adverting to, Governor.
Thank you.
Jeremy, can I
Please,
chime in?
please, Walker.
Governor, I would also, that the Governmental Conduct Act would apply to many incumbents for statewide office. And so to the extent an incumbent for statewide office is, using their position to further their personal interest in obtaining re-election, that could also be the subject of a complaint. But again, that kind of a complaint would be subject to the blackout window that Jeremy just mentioned, and we would be basically prohibited from acting on it until after the election. So we wouldn't be in a position to provide any kind of prophylactic relief before the election takes place on those kinds of complaints as well.
Okay.
That's worth mentioning. There are, I suppose there are actions that are very recently happening at the federal level that, if they happened in the state context, would be prohibited by the Governmental Conduct Act, namely 1016-3.
Thank you. Commissioner Bluestone, I didn't mean to jump over you, but you were not on my screen then, but do you have anything?
Just one thing. First, thank you, Jeremy. That was a very helpful summary. I appreciate that. Well done. In terms of the educational role, I know I've asked before about coming up with at least a couple of op-eds, maybe ideally with the Secretary of State's office, on the proper use of campaign funds, number one, and what you can and can't really do with your campaign funds. And then number two, as you alluded to, and I think as Governor Carruthers was getting at too, this whole new provision about disclosure of dark money groups. And I just wonder if you could comment a little bit about discussions with the Secretary of State and any op-eds that are in the works along those lines.
So, Chair and Commissioner Bluestone, thank you. We have had those conversations with the Secretary of State. We have volunteered to take the pen on those op-eds, and our communications director, Sunny, is currently working on the op-ed that would relate to what's permissible and impermissible with respect to the expenditure of campaign funds. And I know that's an item that Sunny is currently working on yesterday and today. So it's work that we intend to do.
And we hope to have at least that and maybe a dark money op-ed too before the election.
Both.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Solomon?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman. I think any questions I had really were covered by Commissioners Bluestone and Carruthers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva?
I just wanted to commend Dr. Ferris for the terrific job he did on the written portion of the strategic plan, and I appreciate the presentation he made this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
Well, my question would be, as far as the training materials are concerned, to provide this to the public, who develops those training materials?
Chair and Commissioner Williams, Paul Biederman is currently working on the training materials, as he is also working on an update to the Governmental Conduct Act compliance guide, which was last issued in 2015.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would echo particularly Commissioner Villanueva's comments. Thank you very much. This is a very well thought out and presented report. And with that, you may go on to your next topic, Jeremy.
Thank you, Chair. So turning over to the objectives and strategic actions for FY22, it's essentially the same because the statutory duties are the same. There is a couple of strategic actions that I hope to achieve in FY22 One, which is by then, after perhaps another year of issuing advisory opinions and perhaps some informal advisory opinions, that the commission could work with the New Mexico Compilation Commission to include the State Ethics Commission's advisory opinions on one source. I think the commission is developing some really useful advisory opinions, particularly in the context of the Procurement Code and the Governmental Conduct Act, but specifically the Procurement Code, that I think would be useful for other state agencies and governmental entities, local governmental entities that are also subject to the Procurement Code to have access on New Mexico OneSource, which, by the way, is a fantastic legal resource for the state of New Mexico. Not all states have such great publicly available legal resource databases. Next, the really big lift for the commission in FY22 is the report that's due to the governor and to the legislature on October 1st, 2021. And this is the report where the commission has to give a statement as to the expansion of its jurisdiction, either its personal jurisdiction with respect to, for example, officials and employees of local governments, or an expansion or contraction of its subject matter jurisdiction. And there are other laws that the commission might consider recommending jurisdiction for example, the emoluments clauses of the New Mexico Constitution, among others. But really, the large question that the commission faces, and its largest question that it faces in the next 2 years, is whether to recommend and plan for an expansion to local governments, local government officials, local government employees, with respect to the adjudication of administrative complaints, allowing the public to file signed, notarized administrative complaints with the Ethics Commission that requires the commission's administrative process. And the commission kind of needs to work on, and we plan to work on fleshing out the arguments for and against, and more importantly, just as importantly, what additional resources that would require. At a minimum, if the commission went that direction, I think at a minimum the commission would require 2 additional FTEs to get the commission to a total of 8 filled jobs in order to even have a chance at adjudicating complaints that could be filed against local government officials or employees. And that would include another attorney position and a paralegal position. I think the commission has built a web-based case management system that could scale up to that kind of work, but we need to run it over the course of this year to see how it works before I'd be confident in kind of giving the commission a final recommendation as to that. I will also say, I've said it before in commission meetings and I've had conversations with commissioners about the topic. I believe that the State Ethics Commission currently has authority to enforce at least the Governmental Conduct Act and the Financial Disclosure Act and the Procurement Code against local government officials and employees in state court proceedings if the commission ever thought that a state court enforcement action under those statutes was appropriate. But I think that the commission doesn't need amendments for that authority. I believe it already has that authority. Really what's at issue is whether or not the commission's administrative, adjudicatory, its quasi-judicial power should be extended for local government employees and local government officials, allowing any member of the public to file a complaint with the commission against a local government official or employee. That's the really big question, strategic question that the commission has to confront going forward. And and with that, Chair, that's really what's in addition to the FY21 strategic actions for FY22.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker, do you have any questions on the FY22 strategic plan?
No, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Carruthers?
Yes, I have one question, not necessarily because it's written on the plan, but do we anticipate any conversation with the Association of Counties or the Municipal League in the next little while to determine if in fact they would like to have the Ethics Commission involved in ethics complaints in those jurisdictions?
Chair and Commissioner Carruthers, those are conversations that I absolutely plan on having. I have relationships with both Steve Koppelman and AJ Forte, and it's certainly part of my plan to reach out to both of those organizations for their comments and thoughts about the expansion of this jurisdiction.
I'm speaking to the Municipal League next Thursday, and I don't think it's probably appropriate for me to bring it up if you have those conversations underway, but I'm kind of closing their conference forum next week.
Well, Chair and Commissioner Carruthers, I think it'd be fine to mention the topic if you elected to. There isn't any plans that we've set in stone yet, but it's a topic that we all need to be thinking about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bluestone?
Yes, on that point, I know that Jeremy and I had a couple of discussions with the Espanola Mayor Sanchez following up his op-ed about government corruption in local governments in northern New Mexico. And we talked with him about involving the Municipal League and the Association of Counties to just get input on this issue. And I was wondering, Jeremy, if you have any plans for when you think you'd like to invite Mayor Sanchez or somebody from the Association of Counties or the Municipal League to just help get us as commissioners educated about the pros and cons and the views of local governments.
Chair and Commissioner Bluestone, I'm glad you brought that up. I had that on my list for the determination of next meeting bullet point to get a consensus that I would invite Mayor Sanchez to speak to the commission at the October 2nd meeting if he's available, and if he's not available at a subsequent meeting.
And you might be able to get Mr. Forte from the Municipal League or Steve from the Association of Counties. I mean, it just might be worth having more than one person or maybe get a panel of people to speak on that issue just to start the dialogue.
Noted.
Thank you. Commissioner Solomon?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
Well, I am very strongly in favor of having our authority reach down to the counties and cities. And I state that because of my experience in consulting with some of the counties and cities where I found, as part of my experience there was quite a bit of corruption and collusion. And also because of the amount of money that we have paid out to so many people, I know just in Doña Ana County. And I don't know if that insurance is paid by the municipal organizations or what, but it has been very costly and it makes our insurance premiums go up. So I strongly am in favor of having our authority extend down to the cities and the counties. I found more corruption there than I do at the state level.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I should also note that this project involves some thinking through of how ethics commissions that already exist in some counties and in some municipalities, how their work would relate to the work of a state ethics commission whose jurisdiction extended to counties and municipalities. I don't have any good suggestions on that topic as of right now, but I just want to flag it as a real complication and something that the commission will have to think through as it approaches the right recommendation for this jurisdiction.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes, I just had a question. In the event that, let's say, there's a finding of some kind for an employee, and then there's quite a bit of money paid out. But is that paid out by the municipalities or the municipal group, or is that paid out by the cities and counties with regard to the monies that are paid out to these people who get these exorbitant values or payouts?
You know, Chair and Commissioner Williams, I'm not sure. I do know that both the counties and the municipalities are members of risk pools, and both of those organizations have attorneys that defend them in civil lawsuits, as do sometimes the larger municipalities and counties have their own in-house attorneys. But I don't know the answer to that general question, and I'm not sure that there is a kind of generally applicable answer to that question.
Okay, I'll do a little research on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to move on to the actual numbers of the FY22 request.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And for the commissioner's benefit and the members of the public that are following along, there's a number of documents here that the commission will submit as part of its budget request. I find the Excel spreadsheet that's at the very end of the documents to be the clearest way that I kind of get my head around the numbers. But these documents kind of represent the same materials in a few different ways. But I'll try to speak off of the Excel spreadsheet that's the FY22 budget projection at the end of the open meetings materials. And so the overall request for FY22 is just over $900,000. $900,300 is the commission's FY22 request that I'm presenting. This is a 5% cut of the final appropriation that the commission received after the sanding bill was passed in the special session this past summer, which reduced the commission's FY21 appropriation down to $946,200. So $946,200 is the commission's budget for FY21, and the FY22 request is 5% less of that. That's the budget we've prepared because that's the amount that the Department of Finance and Administration has recommended, encouraged state agencies to prepare given the current revenue collapse of the state. You might have read that in recent months that the state projected a $900+ million shortfall in revenue for FY22. That number will certainly be updated in the October revenue forecasts that both the LFC, the DFA, and TRD prepare jointly. It obviously depends on the price of a barrel of oil and the rig count, the production estimates. And so perhaps going into the next session, the state won't be projecting a $900 million shortfall, but it nevertheless will be projecting a substantial revenue shortfall. I believe that the plan for all state agencies to reduce their budgets by 5% over the final FY21 appropriation is estimated to make up perhaps 330 million, I believe is the number I saw. So I can't in confidence say that even if the commission kind of falls in line with what DFA is encouraging with a 5% cut, that this is the final budget that the commission would make it through the session with. But I do think that that the best strategic move for the commission to attempt to get the most budget it can in an attempt to meet all of these statutory duties is at this point just to fall in line and to present the budget request that the DFA has asked for state agencies to prepare budgets that are 95% of the FY21 final appropriation, and simply to argue that the commission is attempting to do its part with respect to where the state is in its collapsing revenue forecasts, and also to simply state that the state of New Mexico is not going to plug a $900 million hole by taking a few extra $1,000 from the State Ethics Commission. And so I think the commission's best play is again to comply with what the DFA is requesting for state agency budgets. Now, of this $930,000 budget request, this is enough funds in the personnel services, what we call the 200s, for five full-time employees, the executive director, the general counsel, both of which are statutory positions, the finance and administration director, which I hope and intend to move up to a pay band 80 position, the exempt position, which the commission refers to as its director of communications, and a third attorney position, attorney 3, under the state personnel services classified attorney pay band. So this budget can provide for those 5 positions. The budget includes the same amount of contract funds that the commission has in FY21. Namely $175,000. That covers the professional services and the interagency professional services that the commission requires for hearing officers, for investigators if need be, for the UNM summer interns who we hire as contractors. It provides contract funds for the commission's audit, which the commission currently has with Clifton Larson Allen. There's funds here for attorney services. The commission always needs to budget some money for attorney services. For example, in the event that a complaint is filed against a commissioner or staff, I believe in that event, both Walker and I would have to recuse from that administrative proceeding. The commission would have to hire contract attorney staff to handle that matter. So there always needs to be contract funds budget for attorney services, and if the commission if we're just overwhelmed at work at some point in FY22 and we need to bring on another attorney, there's funds here for that, and there's funds here for the IT services that the commission has, the IT contracts that the commission has with real-time solutions to maintain its server and to maintain the web-based case management and docketing system that we've built. So the request is flat in the contracts amount over the 300s from FY21, and it's also flat with respect to the 400s, the other operating costs that the commission has, and this is $100,000 just north of that. And this is the funds that the commission has to pay for everything else, to include our leases of our offices, of our equipment, the fees that we pay DoIT for all of our telecom services, our Westlaw dues, our Kogel dues, all of our office supplies, any travel reimbursements that the commission would pay, any per diems that the commission would pay, either for staff in terms of travel or the commissioners whenever the commission does meet in person again, plus per diem. Our advertising budget, the money that the commission uses to fund the advertisement of its rulemaking in the New Mexico Register, essentially everything else. And this is flat over FY21 as well. And with that, Chair, that's an overview of the FY22 budget, and I'm happy to stand for questions and very likely to enlist Wendy's help in answering any.
Absolutely. Commissioner Baker?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bluestone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions. I just wanted to understand again the breakdown on the contractual services, the 175,000. It looks like, and I appreciate what you say, Jeremy, about trying to follow these spreadsheets to understand it, but it looks like, if I'm reading it right, there's 55,000 of that for professional services to be for hearing officers, investigators, and processors, which is in addition to the 23,000 for the Administrative Office of Hearing Officers. Is that correct?
Commissioner Bluestone, that's correct. The 23,000 that's budgeted is for the Administrative Hearings Office, for the hearings officer services that they might provide. The 55,000 is professional services that could include a contract with a retired judge for hearing officer services, for investigators, for other professional services that the commission might need in FY22. But the amount of money that the commission reserves to compensate and allow for hearing officers in commission cases is spread out over both the interagency professional services for the AHO and any contracts that the commission might enter with a retired judge.
Right now, you have that contract pending with Justice Chavez for approval, right?
That's correct. Very, very likely to be approved soon. It's been approved by 4 of the 5 state agencies that must approve it.
And is there a maximum amount on that contract right now?
That contract, I believe, is for 30,000 for FY21.
So even if we used all of that, there would still be another 25,000 for additional investigators or hearing officers, processors under the budget. That's
correct. That's correct.
And then the 65,000 for attorney fees, that's part of this 175,000 item on contracts. Is that for services such as Mr. Biederman, who you described before?
That's correct. Although, I mean, that's an FY21 contract, but that's an example of what the money in FY22 could be used for. The commission has relied on attorneys to help with rulemaking, drafting, with other kinds of drafting. Again, as I mentioned, in cases of recusal, the attorney services are there. And to be frank, Commissioner Bluestone, if during FY22 the commission just has much more work because it's been in business for a little longer, this allows for some funds to bring on as a contractor another attorney to just help with the normal load of adjudicating cases, drafting advisory opinions, working on litigation, working on subpoena litigation.
Right. Good. Then my only other question is on the 100,000 for other expenditures. The bulk of that is the rent of 40,000. Is that correct?
That is the largest single item in that portion of the budget.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carruthers?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Solomon?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Commissioner Williams?
Yes, I do have a question. Excuse me. And my question is, I don't see any money assigned for per diem and travel for commissioners. So am I to assume that in 21 and 22, we will continue to meet on Zoom, or when the COVID virus is over, will be able to travel to the meetings?
Chair and Commissioner Williams, this budget includes $9,000 for commissioner travel and $3,800 for commissioner per diem. Hopefully by FY22, the commission will be meeting in person again, and we have budgeted funds to account for your travel expenditures and your per diem.
I didn't see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair has no questions. Jeremy, anything else on the budget request?
Chair, the staff would just seek a motion to approve the FY22 budget request.
Is there a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, Commissioner Baker?
Excuse me, I vote to approve.
Commissioner Bluestone?
Yes, approve.
Commissioner Carruthers?
Approve.
Commissioner Solomon?
Approve.
Commissioner Villanueva?
Approve.
Commissioner Williams?
Approve.
And note the chair's approval, please. Thank you very much, Wendy and Jeremy. I believe now we need a brief, does anybody need a break? Or we don't have a whole lot more, but I'm happy to entertain if anybody needs to. Hearing nobody. Okay. So we now need a motion to go into executive session briefly.
And Chair, this motion is to go into executive session under 1015-1H3, the administrative adjudicatory proceedings, and 1015-1H7, the attorney-client privilege pertaining to litigation.
Thank you for covering that for me, Jeremy. Is there a motion?
So
move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Baker?
I vote to approve.
Commissioner Bluestone?
Yes.
Commissioner Carruthers?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Approve.
Commissioner Villanueva?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
yes.
Thank you. Chair votes yes as well. So we will now move into executive session. Let's give Walker a minute to shut down. We good to go?
I believe so, Chair. Let me just confirm that we have everyone. Yeah, looks like everyone everyone's rejoined the main session. So.
All right. Thank you. We are back in open session. Jeremy?
Thank you, Chair. Staff will ask for a motion for the commission to direct staff to continue the investigation in case number 2020-007.
So
Thank you.
moved.
Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Baker?
I vote to approve.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Carruthers,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Approved.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Approved.
Commissioner Williams,
Approve.
and chair votes to approve. Thank you. The motion carries. And the next matter is the
Chair,
letter of the
before we
governor-
move on to the next matter, just for the public's benefit, what just happened was that because case number 2020-007 was older than 90 days under Section 11A of the State Ethics Commission Act, the commission has an opportunity either to dismiss the complaint or instruct staff to continue with the investigation. And the commission just voted to do the latter.
Thank you, Jeremy, and I appreciate your dealing with my ADD and getting that more explicit for the public. All right, now let's move to item number 7, letter regarding guardianships. Commissioner Williams.
Yes, recently I've become involved in the issue of guardianships. And in becoming involved, I have found so much confusion and so much corruption and collusion. And we have families who have been denied guardianship for their own families and given to agencies and the courts as well. I am going to write a letter to the governor with regard to the issue of guardianships because of how confusing it is, how families are being separated, they're not being allowed to obtain guardianships, and the courts are at fault, and so are the guardianship organizations. And so I was just going to tell you that I will write this letter and I will sign it as an ethics commissioner.
Thank you. All right, the next matter, thank you, Francis. The next matter is the determination of the next meeting. We are set for the next meeting for October 2nd. Again, we'll be on Zoom until further notice. And we'll start at 9 o'clock on October 2nd.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to interrupt, but on this matter that Commissioner Williams just explained,
Yes.
I assume that you will be clarifying that you're not signing a letter as an action by the Ethics Commission.
That is correct.
I'm not clear why you're signing it as an ethics commissioner.
I'm signing it as an ethics commissioner because I feel that there are ethical issues involved, and that as an ethics commissioner, I have a duty to report this unethical behavior and to try to get some attention. We have gone to the state auditor because they have recently assumed reviewing guardianship programs, etc. But that has not been successful because it's required that the judge make the complaint. And if the judge is part of the problem, then it's not going to get the attention. So I felt as an ethics commissioner, not involved with my duties in this ethics commission, but only as an ethics commissioner who observed unethical behaviors by many, many places and people, and the separation of families, etc., that I wanted to have the governor's attention on this matter.
Well, I appreciate that explanation. I just think that while it's important to keep speaking out, that yes, you clarify that you're not doing this on behalf of the commission, but it's something you're doing as an individual.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any reason we need to meet before October 2nd, Jeremy or anybody else? I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Chair and commissioners, it's possible that that I might ask you to call a commission meeting with respect to a potential authorization for a subpoena
Okay.
involving a matter that we're investigating.
No,
But
that's fine. But as we stand here, I mean, we can always, we're
That's right.
always flexible to do that. But in terms of our standing meeting,
that's right. And then in terms of the standing meeting, Chair, for the commissioner's benefit, I anticipate that this might be a day-long meeting to
Okay.
kind of walk through what this meeting will involve.
Get
It'll
some
involve
rules
a public
set.
rule hearing. Hopefully, the
Right.
commission will be in a position to approve the rules that are currently out for public comment. There's an intention that the commission might hear presentations from Mayor Sanchez, perhaps from members of the Association of Counties or the Municipal League. The commission has also provided an invitation to New Mexico Ethics Watch to present on the Financial Disclosure Act. And I believe that was anticipated for the October meeting. And so all of that, I think, will accumulate into a meeting that would go well into the afternoon.
Right. And so plan accordingly. I would, you know, in better circumstances, I would have been happy to buy everybody lunch, but since we're not all going to be there, you're on your own.
We can give you telephone numbers for local delivery if that.
Only if you provide caliches for everybody, Governor. All right. Thank you for that, Jeremy. And is there any public comment? Walker, I'll let you investigate that.
Thank you, Chair. If anyone, I guess we can go through the participants since there's only, I think, 6
Short
folks
list.
who are
Yeah.
here. So I'm going to just go ahead and ask each participant whether they have any public comment. Starting with Mr. Cliff Rees. Do you have any public comment, sir?
No, I have no public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, oh, I was going to click Jack, but he exited stage right. Ms. Haywood, do you have any public comment?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sydney Tejas, do you have any public comment?
No, I do not. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Walker.
you. Thank you. Mr. Tony Ortiz, do you have any public comment?
No comment today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Walker, before you move on, Tony, is October 2nd still good for Kathleen and you to present, or do we need to talk about that offline?
Thanks, Jeremy. That is still good.
Okay.
It would involve the Financial Disclosure Act and proposed amendments to the Lobbyist Regulation Act.
All right. As we move closer to the meeting, I'll figure out a time, morning or afternoon, that makes sense for everybody.
Thank you.
That's it. No other participants here.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chair, before you do that, let me just quickly thank Wendy and Walker and Sonny for the work they did on the strategic plan and the budget requests. The budget request is a lot of work, and yes. I just want to, say publicly in public meeting, thank you for all of that attention and work.
And I'm sure that goes for all of us. Yes, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, in the next meeting, will we be discussing the Code of Ethics? Will that be a finalization of the Code of Ethics before we actually publish it? And how long do you think that meeting will take?
Chair and Commissioner Williams, I'm going to follow Governor Carruthers' suggestion and encourage the commission to adopt the Code of Ethics at the next meeting. I would like for you and Walker and I to have an opportunity to meet before September 11th to go through any remaining issues that you might have on the language. And again, I anticipate that meeting could last most of an afternoon, from the morning through most of an afternoon. please plan on an all-day meeting.
Thank you.
Is there a second to the motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Baker,
I approve adjourning.
thank you. Commissioner Carruthers,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair votes yes as well. Thank you, everybody, for getting this through this stuff. Thank you to the staff for their usual, what we've become accustomed to, very, very good and thorough work and presentations. That goes to all of you.
Thank you.
There being nothing else, we are adjourned. See you in a while.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.